Hello everyone, welcome to my corner of the world. Today I'm going to be sharing with you what on the face of it looks a fairly straightforward card, and it is, but I'm using this as an opportunity to remind ourselves of different techniques that we can do using ink, stamps and paper. Now the originator of this design, I saw this one on Pinterest, and for the life of me I can't find it again to be able to give that person credit for it, but I do thank them for the generosity of them sharing. They had a different colour, but I have featured Flirty Flamingo with Petal Pink, and I'm also featuring a bundle from the annual catalogue for 2023-2024, which is the inked and tiled stamp set with the coordinating punch pack. And these are the two punches that go with that. And again, if you know me, you know I love florals, so check one. I love stamp sets that have got images as well as words. So that one's covered, and I like my words if they've got like a nice font. So this kind of hits all three bases for me. So let's have a little look at what we've got going on. So I said we've got different techniques, and basically there's 4 in this card and 5 if you count the punching, but I didn't count that one. So we're going to start with a piece of cardstock, and this is just 1/3 of a sheet, so it's about 3.5 by 8.5. And this isn't critical, it just needs to be big enough to be able to cut your pieces out of. And I've loaded my stamps onto the blocks, and there's some really nice ones, as I say. I love this sort of stripy line. There's a lovely big flower stem. There's sort of a little bud type one, and then there's a little sort of, well, it's kind of a starburst, but maybe it's intended to be like the stamens inside the flower. I don't know, but I like it. It's a lovely filler. So I've got my Flirty Flamingo ink. And my first technique I'm gonna use is stamping off. So I'm basically gonna cover this piece of card with some of this stripy image. And because I only want like a light amount of ink, I'm just stamping off and using what I think some people can call like second generation ink, which basically means there's only a little bit left on the stamp when we add it. Oh, I put that one down directly. Oops, never mind. It adds another bit of variation. Not all that. Now I'm putting all mine in one direction, but there's nothing to stop me from having put some across, but that's just the way I kind of did it for this particular piece. Next, I'm going to take the big flower, and this time I'm going to use my ink full strength, which basically means straight off of the pad and onto the card. And this technique is known as tone on tone. I think probably it's an expression that has been borrowed from the quilting world, but really all it means is that you use the same color ink as the card, and that you get a tone on tone effect. Isn't that pretty? So I put my big flower down first, and then I'm going with my next smallest, which is this sort of double bud, and I'm going to go in and fill in some of the gaps, and I'm deliberately making sure I stamp over the edge. I just think it kind of looks a bit more natural. I think probably I've got enough on there. So what I'll do is I've just inked this up. I'm going to use it on my inside piece. There we go. That's my oh, and while I've got this one in my hand, I might as well do my envelope as well, because we do like decorated envelopes. And then on my piece of card here, I have got some spaces. So that's when I'm going to go in with this really elegant little starburst. And I'm just going to and even if I stamp over something that's already been stamped, I'm going to do that just to, again, to break up the lines and make a little pattern. And when we come to the next step, sometimes the extra levels of pattern really come into their own. All right. Right, I think that's probably as much as I need. Okay, so there we've got a piece of decorated card. So there's our two techniques, stamping off and tone on tone, all in the one piece of card. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the two punches that are part of this bundle, and I'm going to cut 4 of the sort of star-shaped one. 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to take the other punch and we're going to cut 5. So that gives us 9 pieces to arrange. 3, 4, 5. So you've got spare for one more if you happen to snafu on one of your shapes. And now our next technique is sponging. So I have a sponge dauber. You can use the blending brushes if you so wish. But I find for this purpose, I just find it a little bit quicker to use a sponge dauber. So you either hold it in your fingers, or I like to slip it on one finger, and then it's easier to maneuver. So I'm going to just gently sponge around the edges of my pieces. Now I already did some ahead of time, because I figured, well, you know, you see me sponge one piece, you can see me sponge them all without actually sitting there patiently and watching. So I'm literally just putting a little bit of ink on the edges just to define those edges. You see, it makes quite a difference. Now I'm also going to take this piece of card. Now this piece of card is 4x4, and all I'm going to do is quickly sponge the edges of this. Now you don't have to remember all of the measurements, because they will be on the recipe, and if you look below the video, you will see a link to that, and that will give you all the information. So I've done that, and then I've got a piece of this very, very pretty decorative paper, and this is from the Hello Irresistible suite, and it's got flowers on one side. I'm not going to use that side, although it's very, very pretty. I want to use this side, which is kind of a bit like Flirty Flamingo and pinky coloured clouds. That's what that reminds me of. And I'm just going to put a little bit of ink around the edges on that one as well. There. And I think we are all done with sponging. Although if you want to, you could sponge the piece that goes inside. Again, just quickly going around the edge. Sponging is a great technique if you want to do something that is like vintage-inging or shabby chic-inging. Again, as I say, it just adds just a little bit of extra dimension and a bit more interest without adding any bulk to your card. Right, so that is, I think, all my sponging that I'm going to do. I'm just going to take this away so we've got a nice clear place to work on. Right, now we're going to add a dimensional to the back of each of these pieces, and then we're going to build up a pattern on that piece of that square piece of Flirty Flamingo. And I'm going to give you a couple of tips on how to build it up to get a good pattern. Now, if you look at my card here, you'll see that I have got like a little margin around these pieces all the way around, and then these pieces, the little pointy bits, stick out, and that's deliberate. That, you know, that's not a problem with my punching or anything. That is kind of done deliberately, and it's a result of lining everything up. So what you're going to do is you're going to start with your corner pieces first. So if you want to have all of the lines going in the same direction, this is where you need to kind of set them out. So I will on this occasion, I'll just put them there. So there's my 4 corners, and I'm going to lay those down. As I say, I'm just putting a little margin on there, sort of a little border like that. Once I've done that, then that allows me to line up the other pieces and to space them. If I just kind of built up one after the other, I might find I end up with a wide margin here, or I run out of space. So this, I found that this is the best way to do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to position it so that the points are in the points of my X's here, and that it's equally spaced here and here. So by lining those points up, it does give you that little bit that's overhanging there. But that is not a problem for me. That's exactly what I want it to do. So doing it again, I'm going to line up. I'm going to make sure that my points are lined up, and I'm as close as being center of those 2 pieces as I possibly can. You're never going to be perfect, but we're not looking for perfection, because the way I look at it is that these are handmade cards, and so they're not machine. If you want it absolutely perfect, that's when a machine comes into play, and I like my cards to be handmade. I don't want them to be machine made. So there. And then the last one I'm going to do is the one in the middle. And I can center that up. And there. It's kind of a tic-tac-toe effect. And there we've got our pieces laid out. And you can see how the sponging really allows it to pop from the card beneath. And then we're going to pop some dimensionals on the back of that. One. So I'm going to put one in the middle because there's quite a lot of weight of card. So that will just help support it. And I've got my base card. So this is Petal Pink. And it's just 8.5 by 5.5. I've just scored it at 4.25, so that it folds in half. And then I'm just going to add this piece toward the bottom. I like to use my liquid adhesive. You could use whatever works for you, whether it's tape, whether it's stamping. Oh, dearie me, Butterfingers. And then we can go ahead and put this piece on. And since I went to all the trouble to make sure my lines were going vertically, I need to make sure I put my card together there. And I'm just going to bring it so that there. Now I already did my greeting. In the stamp set there are lots of ones. There's hello friend, happy birthday, lots of love, just a note, thank you. So my first one I did this with thank you. And so this one I'm going to put happy birthday. So I've stamped this and I've cut it out with the oval jewel punch. And it's this one. And all I've done is just layer it onto some Flirty Flamingo there. And we might as well put our inside piece in so that we can write our to you, love from me on there. See what I mean about having the edge sponged? It kind of just gives that another level of pop, doesn't it? And my fourth and final technique I'm going to share with you, or remind you, because I'm sure you know these, is fussy cutting. So I've got my nice big stamp, and with my ink, and I'm just going to add this onto a piece of, this is just it's not really a scrap of card, but a piece of basic white cardstock, like that. And then we're going to get our snips. So paper snips, these are the ones I put this big old key fob on it, because then I'm less likely to lose my scissors if I've got that on there. So here's my tips for fussy cutting. Different people do it different ways, and maybe you have your own way which you like and you can do. But here's my tips. So the first thing you need to decide is, are you going to cut on the line, or are you going to leave a little white border? Well, this image is one that it's not a solid image. I think its charm comes from the fact that it's got sort of dark bits and light bits and gappy bits. Now, it's also got a very fine stem. Now, if I cut on the line for my stem, that is going to be very, very thin, and it might be easily broken. So I am actually going to cut mine with a small white margin. And so I start with my scissors nicely opened like this, and I start and I gently squeeze the blades together and I move my paper around. And then when they start to close, I open and I move the paper, open, move the paper. So here's the first bit. In fact, I'm going to take this off because that's getting in my way. Right, I'm going to go and I'm going to move my paper really close around like that, and keeping on let's get rid of that piece, it's getting in my way. And then I'm going to take this down and curve it round. I'm not going to the bottom of my leaf, I'm just going to leave some white there. Now I'm going to got a really sharp point here, so again I've got my scissors open and like that. This is a nice piece to go up. Now I'm going to turn my card again, and you can follow all the little ins and outs. Let's see. Periodically I have to get the spare bit, that other bit off. But pick up, turn round these petals. Now if you look and you think, oh, I really needed a curved bit or a pointed bit on a particular piece, then you can always sort of go back and just round it off. But the main thing is to get this first bit, main bit cut out. And as you can see, I have got some white showing. And to be honest with you, when you put it on the card, the piece of white that's showing will really help it pop. If you haven't got the white, it does mean that your flower can actually disappear because you're using all Flirty Flamingo. So this way, we're going to go here and we're going to go round the corner and in here, and we're going to bring it round and down. Right, I think I'm going to start the other side now. And we're going to go down. I can't see my edge terribly well, so I might have to go back and do a little special hand trim on that. Right, so let's take this in. And swing the card round. Now I did prepare one of these so that ahead of time so that you wouldn't necessarily have to watch me do this, but then it struck me is that maybe you'd think if I kind of started it and then presented one that was completely cut out, you might have thought I hadn't done it. So this is me proving that I cut my flower out in its entirety. Right, let's go here. There, nearly done. Right, so now I've got this piece here that's quite white. I'm just going to go in and just take a bit of that extra out. Like that. And I've got a piece here that's a bit too pointy. So I'm going to go in and just trim some of that away. There. I think that's a weeny bit too as well, a bit too wide. So let's just go in and take some of that off. There. So there's our fourth technique, which is fussy cutting. All right. So I'm going to attach it to my card here, and I'm going to attach it with a couple of glue dots behind the flower, because there's two. Oh, I've got it on my nail. Oh, darn. Like that. Now, when it goes onto my card, it's going to be hanging over here. So I'm just going to put a little piece of Stampin' Dimensional underneath the leaves that are gonna, and then everything will actually then be level. So I'm gonna have it going kind of like this. That needs to be down there, and then position those where they are. And then I've got one final bit of luxuriousness, and that's these beautiful flat pearls. And I'm just going to put one at the base of each of my two flowers. And there, we're done. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this, if you like, this revisit of some basic techniques. So we did stamping off, we did tone on tone, we did sponging, and we did fussy cutting. Well, if you have enjoyed this, perhaps you'll go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you don't subscribe, perhaps you'll do that. And if you've any questions or any comments to make, you can just pop them down below in the comments, and I would really love to read them. Well, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate your time, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye for now.